The $8,000 Cartier champagne bottle hit Kendra's temple before she even saw it coming. She crashed into the 8-tier wedding cake, buttercream roses exploding around her as she hit the marble floor of the Grand Hyatt ballroom, her custom ivory gown tearing, her head splitting open against the gold-plated cake stand. For a moment, the entire wedding reception, 200 guests in designer suits and couture gowns, went completely silent. Kendra looked up from the floor, blood trickling down her face, frosting in her locks, at the man standing over her with murder twisting his handsome features. Darius. Her groom. The man she'd just married 45 minutes ago. You think I didn't know? Darius snarled, his voice echoing off the crystal chandeliers. You think I didn't find out the truth about you? Kendra's hands shook as she tried to push herself up, her mind spinning. What truth? What was he talking about? They'd dated for 8 months. He'd proposed with a 3-carat diamond. They'd planned this wedding down to every detail. She'd thought. God, she'd actually thought this time would be different. That this time, she'd found someone who saw her, loved her, wanted to build a life with her. Darius, I don't understand, she started, her voice cracking. Don't. He held up one hand, his face contorted with disgust. Don't lie to me anymore. I know about him. I know about the blood. I know what you really are. The room erupted in whispers. Kendra's heart stopped. No, he couldn't know. No one knew. That was 7 years ago, half a world away, buried in her past where it belonged. But Darius had no idea who was standing in the back of the ballroom. He had no idea that the wedding guest who'd arrived late, the one in the black Tom Ford suit who'd slipped into the last row without announcing himself, had gone absolutely still the moment that bottle connected with Kendra's face. He had no idea that the composed, wealthy tech investor named David Kim that Kendra's best friend had brought as her +1 wasn't named David at all. He had no idea that the man currently rising from his seat, 6 of his security detail materializing from the shadows where they'd been positioned all evening, was Kong Minjun, head of the Kong family, controller of half of Seoul's underground operations, and owner of legitimate businesses spanning 3 countries worth approximately $2.3 billion. He had no idea that Kendra hadn't invited David Kim to this wedding. He had no idea that Kong Minjun had received a notification 17 hours ago that Kendra Ashante Johnson, the woman who'd saved his life 7 years ago with her own blood, the woman he'd searched for across 3 continents, the woman he'd never forgotten, was getting married in Atlanta, Georgia. And he had absolutely no idea that the chance meeting with Kendra's best friend 3 weeks ago, the developing friendship, the +1 invitation to the wedding, none of it had been coincidence. Minjun checked his watch, 7:47 p.m. He'd promised himself he would simply observe. Confirm she was happy, safe, loved. If she was, he would leave. Disappear back to Seoul. Let her live the normal life she deserved, the one he could never give her. That promise had lasted exactly 45 minutes and 32 seconds, right up until the moment her new husband had committed an unforgivable act. Minjun moved down the aisle between the tables of frozen wedding guests, his footsteps silent on the marble floor despite his handmade Italian leather shoes. His security detail fanned out, blocking the exits. In approximately 3 minutes, Darius Montgomery III, trust fund baby, mediocre investment banker, and the man who'd just made the worst mistake of his life, was about to learn several important lessons. 1. Every person has a past, and some pasts are more valuable than others. 2. There are men in this world who will burn cities to the ground for a woman they love. 3. Kong Minjun was one of those men. 4. And Kendra Ashante Johnson, the woman bleeding on the ballroom floor, the woman Darius had humiliated in front of 200 people, the woman he'd just struck with a bottle that cost more than most people's monthly rent. She'd been Minjun's from the moment she'd rolled up her sleeve in that Seoul hospital 7 years ago and said, "Take my blood. Whatever you need. Just don't die." But Darius still didn't know it yet. Kendra tried to stand, her legs shaking, her head throbbing where the bottle had connected. Around her, guests were pulling out phones. Some were filming. Others were whispering, their eyes gleaming with the kind of schadenfreude that made her stomach turn. This was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. Instead, it was. She saw him then, walking toward her through the crowd like Moses parting the Red Sea, except the sea was Atlanta's black elite in their finest clothes, and Moses was a Korean man in a suit that probably cost more than her wedding dress, moving with the kind of deadly grace that made everyone instinctively step back. David Kim. Except as he got closer, as she saw his face properly for the first time tonight, saw those dark, unreadable eyes that she'd never quite forgotten. Her heart stopped for an entirely different reason. That wasn't David Kim. That was... No, it couldn't be. 7 years. 7 years since Seoul. 7 years since the hospital. 7 years since she donated blood to a dying stranger and then left South Korea 3 days later, returning to the States to rebuild her life after her devastating breakup with Marcus. 7 years since she'd wondered, late at night when sleep wouldn't come, what had happened to the beautiful, unconscious man they'd wheeled into surgery while her blood dripped into his veins. Minjun. The name left her lips in a whisper. He stopped 3 feet away from her, and his eyes, God, his eyes, held a universe of things she couldn't name. "Hello, Kendra," he said quietly. "I've been looking for you for a very long time." Then he turned to Darius, and his expression transformed into something that made Kendra's blood run cold. "We need to talk about what you just did to my woman. Before I show you how Kang Minjun is about to dismantle this wedding and this man's entire life, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because this story is about to get intense. Drop a comment telling me, should Kendra give Minjun a chance or is she better off alone? Let's find out together. But to understand how a chance blood donation in a Seoul hospital 7 years ago led to this moment, to understand why Kang Minjun just called Kendra his woman at her wedding to another man, we need to go back. Back to where it all began. Back to when Kendra Ashante Johnson was 24 years old, broke, heartbroken, and about to save the life of the one man who would change her destiny forever. 7 years earlier, Kendra Ashante Johnson was 24 years old and living what she thought was her dream life in Brooklyn. She worked 2 jobs, morning shifts as a phlebotomist at Mount Sinai Hospital and evening shifts waitressing at an upscale restaurant in Tribeca, to support the life she and her boyfriend Marcus had built together. Their apartment in Bed-Stuy wasn't much, just a railroad-style 1-bedroom with radiators that clanked and neighbors who fought at 2 a.m., but Kendra had made it home. Plants in every window. Artwork from the flea market on the walls. Her grandmother's quilt on the bed. She paid the rent. All of it. $2,100 a month that took nearly everything she made from both jobs. She paid their bills, electric, internet, his car insurance, his phone. She bought his clothes when he had networking events to attend. Bought groceries. Covered his drinks when they went out because Marcus was between opportunities, had been for 8 months, was working on his music career and making connections. Her friends said she was being used. Her mother called from Baltimore every Sunday to ask when Kendra was going to wake up and see that Marcus was a user, not a partner. But Kendra believed in him. Believed in them. Believed that love meant sacrifice, meant holding someone up when they were down, meant being patient while they found their way. She learned that from her grandmother, love is an action, not just a feeling. You show up. You do the work. You don't abandon people when things get hard. So she worked. And worked. And believed. Right up until the morning she came home early from her hospital shift, they'd been overstaffed and sent her home with half a day's pay, and found Marcus in their bed. With her coworker Jasmine. In the bed Kendra paid for. In the apartment Kendra paid for. Wearing the lingerie Kendra had bought for their anniversary 3 months ago that Marcus said he'd lost. The sound Kendra made wasn't quite a scream, wasn't quite a sob. It was something primal, something that came from a place so deep inside her that she didn't know it existed until that moment, the sound of her entire world shattering. Marcus had the audacity to look annoyed. Not ashamed. Not sorry. Annoyed. "Kendra, I can explain. Get out." Her voice didn't sound like her own. "Both of you. Get out of my apartment. Now." That's when Jasmine laughed. actually laughed, sitting up in Kendra's bed, sheet clutched to her chest. Your apartment? Girl, stop playing. Marcus told me how you manipulated him into staying with you, how you use money to control him. Kendra's vision went red. Marcus told you what? Baby, come on, Marcus said, finally standing up, pulling on the Lululemon pants Kendra had bought him last month. You know things haven't been good between us for a while. You work all the time. You're never home. A man has needs. I work all the time because I'm paying for everything. The words erupted from her. I work 2 jobs so you can find yourself and chase your dreams while contributing absolutely nothing. See? Marcus turned to Jasmine. This is what I'm talking about. Everything's about money with her. Everything's about what she does, what she pays for. She keeps score of every dollar like I owe her something. Kendra stared at him. At this man she'd loved for 3 years. This man she'd sacrificed for, believed in, built a life around. And she realized her mother was right. She'd been in love with a ghost. With potential. With who she hoped he'd become instead of who he actually was. You're right, she said quietly. I do keep score. So, let me total it up for you. She pulled out her phone, opened her banking app, and started reading. 3 years of rent, $75,600. 3 years of utilities, approximately $8,000. Your car insurance that I paid because yours lapsed, $4,500. Your phone bill, $3,600. Groceries, clothes, entertainment, the recording studio time you said was an investment in our future. Let's conservatively estimate another $15,000. Her voice cracked, but she kept going. That's $106,700, Marcus. $106,700 that I spent building a life with someone who was apparently just using me as a bank account while sleeping with my coworker in the bed I paid for. The room went silent. I want you out, Kendra continued. You have until I get back from my evening shift tonight. Take your clothes, your equipment, whatever. But you don't get to take anything I paid for. And you definitely don't get to rewrite history and pretend I'm the villain here. She walked out of her own bedroom, grabbed her purse, and left. She didn't cry until she was on the subway. Then she sobbed so hard a stranger asked if she needed help. The eviction notice came 6 weeks later. Marcus hadn't just been unfaithful. He'd stopped paying the rent, her rent, the money she'd been giving him in cash to deposit, 3 months before she caught him cheating. He'd pocketed $6,300 and let them get evicted. By then, Kendra had also discovered that he'd opened 2 credit cards in her name. Maxed them out. Destroyed her credit score that she'd spent years building. The hospital fired her 2 weeks after that, not because of her work, but because Jasmine had filed a harassment complaint, claiming Kendra was creating a hostile work environment by existing in the same building. HR believed the woman who'd been there longer. Kendra lost her apartment, her job, her savings trying to fix the credit card fraud, her sense of safety in the world. She couch-surfed for a while, her friend Tanisha for 2 weeks, her cousin in Queens for 10 days, but she could see the strain it put on people. The way they started avoiding her. The whispered conversations about how long she was staying. Pride made her leave before they could ask. She slept in her 2004 Honda Civic for 3 weeks in July. In Brooklyn. In summer heat that made the car feel like an oven even with the windows cracked. She showered at the gym. Washed her scrubs in gas station bathrooms. Applied for jobs on her phone from parking lots, trying to ignore the stares from people who could tell she was homeless. The breaking point came on a Wednesday. She woke up in her car outside a 24-hour Walmart, drenched in sweat, dizzy with hunger because she'd had $11 in her bank account and had spent $8 on gas so she could run the AC for a few hours. She looked at herself in the rearview mirror, eyes sunken, locks matted, skin dull, and thought, I don't want to do this anymore. Not suicidal, exactly. Just done. Exhausted. Ready to give up. Then her phone rang. Her friend Ashley, calling from Seoul, South Korea, where she'd been teaching English for the past year. Hey love, I know things have been rough. But my roommate just moved back to Canada, and I need someone to take over her room. Rent's cheap. I can probably get you a job at my academy, and honestly, I think you need a fresh start far away from everything that happened. Kendra looked around her car, her home for 3 weeks, and made a decision. When can I fly out? Seoul in October was a revelation. The colors, reds and golds, burning across the mountains surrounding the city. The smells, street food vendors on every corner selling tteokbokki and hotteok. The sounds, K-pop blasting from shops, the melodic rise and fall of Korean conversations, subway announcements in 4 languages. Kendra felt like she could breathe for the first time in months. Ashley had been right. The English Academy hired her within a week. Her phlebotomy certification and hospital experience made her trustworthy for teaching medical English to nursing students. The pay wasn't great by American standards, but in Seoul, it covered her rent, food, and even a little savings. For 2 months, Kendra rebuilt herself. She found a routine, taught classes, explored the city, made friends with other expat teachers and some of her Korean students, went to noraebang rooms and screamed her heartbreak into microphones while drunk on soju. Slowly, carefully, she remembered who she was before Marcus. Then came December 13th. Kendra was walking home from a late dinner in Itaewon, her breath fogging in the cold air, Christmas lights strung across the street in preparation for the holidays. She heard the screaming first, then the gunshots. Then the black Mercedes SUV that careened around the corner, side door open, a man's body half hanging out, blood pouring from his chest onto the white snow. The SUV crashed into a telephone pole 20 feet from where Kendra stood frozen on the sidewalk. Everything happened in seconds. 3 men in black suits jumped out of the vehicle. 2 of them tried to pull the bleeding man out. The third was on his phone, screaming in Korean. Kendra's phlebotomy training kicked in before her common sense did. She ran toward them. "I'm a medical professional," she shouted in broken Korean, the phrases Ashley had taught her. "Wisa. Wisa. Doctor. Close enough." One of the men in black, face scarred, eyes wild, pointed a gun at her. She put her hands up but didn't stop moving forward. "He's bleeding out. You want him to die? Let me help." The man with the phone barked something. Scarface lowered his gun. Kendra dropped to her knees in the blood-soaked snow next to the dying man. He was young, late 20s, maybe 30. Korean. Devastatingly handsome even in crisis, with sharp features and black hair matted with blood. He wore an expensive suit, torn and ruined. His chest rose and fell in shallow, desperate gasps. 2 gunshot wounds. One in the upper chest, dangerously close to his heart. One in his abdomen. "Hospital," Kendra snapped at the men surrounding her. "Now. He needs surgery, blood transfusion." "No hospital." The man with the phone crouched beside her. His English was accented but clear. "They'll find him. They'll finish the job. Then he'll die here in about 4 minutes, Kendra shot back. The man's jaw clenched. "There's a private facility. 10 minutes away. They're sending a surgeon." But he looked at his dying boss, at the blood that wouldn't stop flowing. "He won't make it 10 minutes. Kendra looked at the dying man's face. At his eyes, which had flickered open and were staring at her with a clarity that shouldn't exist in someone who'd lost this much blood. He was trying to say something. She leaned closer. "Mian, Hemnita. I'm sorry." "Don't apologize," Kendra whispered. "Just stay alive." She ripped off her jacket, pressed it against the chest wound, used her scarf for the abdominal one. Applied pressure. Counted his heartbeats. Watched his eyes start to close. "Don't you dare," she said fiercely. "Don't you dare die on me. I didn't survive this year to watch someone else give up." His eyes opened again, focused on her face. And somehow, impossibly, the corner of his mouth lifted. Almost a smile. The SUV that arrived 4 minutes later wasn't an ambulance. It was another black vehicle, this one with a medical team that moved with military precision. They loaded the dying man onto a stretcher. Started in 4. Barked orders in rapid Korean. "Blood type," one of them shouted at Kendra. I'm not." "His blood type." The medic was panicking, checking the man's pulse. "He's AB negative. Rarest type in Korea. Our facility doesn't have enough in storage." Kendra heard herself say it before her brain caught up. "I'm AB negative." Everyone stopped. "Take mine," she said. Whatever you need. However much. Just don't let him die. They transported her with him to the private facility, a building in Gangnam that looked like a luxury hotel from the outside, but was a fully equipped hospital inside. The surgeon was already scrubbed in when they arrived. The men in black suits surrounded the building, armed and deadly. And Kendra sat in a chair next to an operating room, a needle in her arm, watching her blood flow through a tube into a bag that would be transfused into a stranger she'd known for less than 10 minutes. The man with the phone, she'd learn later his name was Yoon Sang-woo, head of security, sat down beside her. "Who is he?" Kendra asked quietly. Sang-woo was silent for a long moment. Then, Kang Min-jun, head of the Kang family, one of the most powerful men in Seoul. And someone just tried to kill him. His younger brother. Sang-woo's voice was bitter. Betrayal always comes from inside. Kendra watched her blood drain from her arm, type AB negative, the universal recipient for plasma, one of the rarest types in the world. She thought about Marcus. About betrayal. About how she'd crossed an ocean to escape her pain only to end up in a snowy street saving a man who'd been shot by his own family. "Will he live?" she whispered. Sang-woo looked at her then, really looked at her, this young black woman with locks and kind eyes who'd run toward gunfire instead of away, who was literally giving her blood to a stranger. "Because of you," he said quietly. "Maybe. He has a chance now." The surgery took 6 hours. Kendra gave 2 units of blood. Sat in the waiting room wrapped in a blanket someone brought her. Refused to leave even though she was dizzy, exhausted, should have gone home. She didn't know why she stayed. Just knew she had to see him live. Had to know her blood, her choice, her action mattered. At 4:47 a.m., the surgeon emerged, pulling off bloodied gloves. "He'll live," the doctor said in English. It was close. "Without the blood transfusion, without getting here when we did." He shook his head. Someone was watching over him tonight. The doctor looked at Kendra. "You saved his life." Kendra started crying. From relief, exhaustion, the weight of the last 6 months finally breaking open inside her. A nurse brought her orange juice and cookies. Sang-woo drove her back to her apartment at dawn. Before she got out of the car, he handed her a card with a phone number. "If you ever need anything, ever, you call this number." "I don't want money," Kendra said quickly. "I know." Sang-woo smiled for the first time. "That's why he'll want to meet you when he wakes up." But Kendra never made that call. Because 3 days later, her visa situation became complicated, her academy hadn't properly registered her, and she was at risk of deportation. Ashley helped her pack. She left Seoul on December 16th, 72 hours after saving Kang Min-jun's life. She never told anyone the full story. Never mentioned the blood, the surgery, the powerful man who'd looked at her in the snow and smiled even while dying. It felt like a fever dream. Something that happened to someone else. She flew back to the States. Moved to Atlanta where her cousin helped her get a job at Emory Hospital. Rebuilt her life. Again. Slowly. Carefully. Dated casually. Nothing serious. Trust was hard after Marcus. Until she met Darius Montgomery III at a hospital fundraiser 2 years ago. Charming, successful, from a good family. He seemed safe. Stable. The opposite of Marcus in every way. She'd thought she'd finally found her happy ending. She'd been wrong. Because in a private recovery room in Gangnam 7 years ago, Kang Min-jun had woken up from surgery, asked about the woman who'd saved him, and learned she was gone. Find her, he'd told Sang-woo, his voice weak but absolutely certain. "I don't care how long it takes. Find her." And it took 7 years. 3 continents. Dozens of investigators. Thousands of hours. But Kang Min-jun always finished what he started. And when he learned that Kendra Ashante Johnson, the woman who'd given him her blood, her time, her tears in a hospital waiting room, was marrying a man who didn't deserve her, he booked a flight to Atlanta. Made a plan. Got himself invited to that wedding. And waited. Now, standing in the Grand Hyatt ballroom with Kendra bleeding on the floor and her new husband about to learn the most expensive lesson of his life, Min-jun felt something he hadn't felt in 7 years. Purpose. Security, he said quietly, and 6 men moved into position around the ballroom, blocking exits with the kind of efficiency that made several guests reach for their phones. Darius finally noticed the shift in the room. Noticed the men in black suits. Noticed the dangerous-looking Korean man walking toward him with eyes that promised violence. "Who the hell are you?" Darius demanded, puffing up his chest. "This is a private event. You need to." Minjun moved so fast Darius didn't see it coming. One moment he was standing. The next, Minjun had him by the throat, lifted slightly off his feet, slammed against the wall hard enough to crack the decorative plaster. "My name is Kong Minjun," he said, voice Arctic cold, loud enough for every person in that ballroom to hear. "And the woman you just assaulted, the woman whose blood is on your floor, whose dress you tore, whose wedding you just destroyed, she saved my life 7 years ago." He tightened his grip. "Which means you just made the worst mistake of your existence." But before Minjun could dismantle Darius's life in front of 200 witnesses, Kendra's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Stop." Minjun's hand loosened immediately. He turned to look at her. Kendra had gotten to her feet, using the destroyed cake table for support. Her wedding dress was ruined, buttercream and blood staining the ivory silk. Her head was bleeding, her eye already swelling where the bottle had connected. But she stood straight. Chin up. Eyes blazing. "I said stop." She looked at Minjun, and something passed between them, recognition, memory, 7 years of distance collapsing in a single moment. "I don't know how you found me. I don't know why you're here. But I don't need you to fight my battles." She turned to face the crowd of wedding guests, all of them with their phones out, filming, whispering, feeding on the drama like sharks scenting blood. "This wedding is over," Kendra announced, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. "Darius, I want an annulment. Tonight. Tomorrow. As soon as legally possible." "You can't just," Darius started, finally finding his voice now that Minjun had released him. "I can." Kendra's laugh was bitter. "Because whatever truth you think you discovered about me, whatever you think gives you the right to humiliate me, assault me, destroy our wedding, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you just showed me exactly who you are. And I don't marry men who put their hands on me in violence." She looked at Minjun then, really looked at him, and her voice softened. "Even when they're trying to protect me." Minjun stepped back, hands raised in surrender, but his eyes never left her face. "You need medical attention," he said quietly. "That cut is deep. I'm a phlebotomist." "I know." Kendra touched her temple, her fingers coming away bloody. "But I'm handling this my way." "Understood." For a moment, no one breathed. Then Kong Minjun, one of the most powerful men in Seoul, a man who commanded criminal empires and legitimate businesses with equal authority, a man who hadn't bowed to anyone since his father died, nodded. "Understood." Kendra turned to her maid of honor, Tanisha, who was standing frozen by the bridal table. "I need my purse, my phone, and a ride too. You're coming with me." Minjun's voice left no room for argument. "I have a medical team at my hotel. They'll treat your injuries, check for concussion, make sure you're safe." "I just said." "I know what you said." Minjun moved closer, and Kendra could smell him now, the same cologne she remembered from that night in Seoul, cedar and sandalwood and something uniquely him. "You don't need me to fight your battles. I respect that. But you do need medical care. You need somewhere safe to go that isn't back to whatever apartment you shared with him." He gestured at Darius, who was still slumped against the wall, looking between them with growing confusion and rage. "And whether you want to admit it or not," Minjun continued, his voice dropping low enough that only Kendra could hear, "you need answers. About how I found you. About why I've been looking. About what you mean to me." Kendra's heart stuttered. "I don't even know you. You knew me well enough to give me your blood." His eyes held hers. "You knew me well enough to sit in a hospital waiting room for 6 hours while I was in surgery. You knew me well enough to cry when you heard I'd live. How do you?" Sangwoo told me everything. Every detail. Every moment. Minjun's hand lifted, hesitated, then gently touched the air beside her face, not quite making contact. "I've been trying to find you for 7 years to say thank you. To repay the debt. You don't owe me anything," Kendra whispered. "I owe you everything." His voice cracked, just slightly. And right now, I'm asking, not demanding, asking, will you let me help you? Just for tonight. Just until you figure out your next move. Kendra looked around the ballroom. At Darius, who'd assaulted her. At the guests, who'd watched and filmed and would turn this into gossip by morning. At Tanisha, who looked worried and overwhelmed. At the destroyed cake, the blood on marble, the champagne bottle that had cost $8,000 and her dignity. She had nowhere to go. The apartment was in Darius's name. She'd moved into his place 6 months ago. Her closest family was in Baltimore, 5 hours away. She couldn't crash with Tanisha again. She'd already imposed too much over the years. And this man, this stranger who wasn't quite a stranger, was offering her safety, medical care, and answers. One night, Kendra said finally, "I'll come to your hotel tonight, get checked out by your doctor, and we'll talk. Tomorrow, I figure out my life on my own. Deal?" Minjun's smile was small but genuine. Deal. He turned to his security team and spoke in rapid Korean. They moved immediately, creating a corridor through the crowd of guests. Then Minjun offered Kendra his arm. She hesitated for only a moment before taking it. As they walked toward the exit, Darius finally found his voice again. "Kendra, you can't just leave with some random." Random? Minjun stopped, turned, and his expression made Darius take an involuntary step back. "Let me clarify something for you, Mr. Montgomery. My net worth is approximately $2.3 billion. I own 17 legitimate businesses across 3 countries. I employ over 3,000 people. And that's just what appears on paper." He took a step closer to Darius. "The other things I control, the other operations I run, the other reasons why men like you should be very, very careful about how you treat women like her, those don't appear anywhere official. But they're the reasons why, if you ever come near Kendra again, if you ever speak her name with anything other than respect, if you even think about contesting this annulment." Minjun leaned in, voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried through the silent ballroom. "You'll discover exactly how random I'm not." He straightened, adjusted his Tom Ford suit jacket, and offered his arm to Kendra again. "Shall we?" The hotel suite Minjun had booked was at the Four Seasons Atlanta, not just a room, but the entire penthouse floor. Kendra stood in the marble entryway, blood still drying on her face, wedding dress dragging on imported Italian tile, and tried to process the reality of her situation. 6 hours ago, she'd been getting married. Now she was in a penthouse with a man she'd met once, 7 years ago, for less than 10 minutes while he was dying in the snow. A man who'd just threatened her husband, ex-husband, she reminded herself, with the kind of quiet violence that made her believe every word. A man who'd been searching for her for 7 years. "The doctor will be here in 10 minutes, Minjun said, shrugging off his suit jacket and draping it over a chair. "In the meantime, let me—" "Why were you at my wedding?" Kendra interrupted. "And don't tell me it was coincidence. Men like you don't do coincidences." Minjun was quiet for a long moment. Then he walked to the bar, poured 2 glasses of whiskey, Macallan 25, she noticed, bottles that cost $2,000 each, and brought one to her. "Drink first. Questions after you're not in shock." "I'm not in shock." "You're trembling. Your pupils are dilated. You're bleeding from a head wound and haven't sat down once since we arrived." His voice was gentle but firm. "Drink. Sit. Let me clean that cut. Then I'll tell you everything." Kendra wanted to argue. Wanted to maintain her independence, her strength, her walls. But she was exhausted. And her head hurt. And the whiskey smelled expensive and warm, and like maybe it could take the edge off this surreal nightmare. She drank. It burned going down, then spread warmth through her chest. Minjun guided her to the couch, leather, cream-colored, probably cost more than her car, and disappeared into the bathroom. He returned with a first aid kit that looked more comprehensive than most hospital supply closets. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to her temple. Kendra nodded. He sat beside her, close enough that she could feel his body heat, and began cleaning the wound with a gentleness that contradicted everything about the violence she'd seen him capable of an hour ago. His hands were steady, professional, careful not to hurt her. You've done this before, Kendra observed. I've been injured before. A slight smile. You learn to patch yourself up when hospitals aren't always an option. Because of what you do. Because of what I am. He applied butterfly bandages to close the cut. My father built an empire, legitimate and otherwise. When he died 5 years ago, I inherited everything, the businesses, the responsibilities, the enemies. Like your brother. Minjun's hands stilled. Sangwoo told you. That night, while we waited, Kendra watched his face. He said your brother shot you. Betrayal from inside. Taeyong. Minjun's voice went flat. He thought he should inherit everything. Thought I was too soft, too Western, too willing to legitimize our operations instead of expanding the underground empire. So he decided to eliminate the obstacle. Did he? Kendra hesitated. Is he alive? Yes. In prison? Also yes. Minjun finished bandaging her temple and moved to check her pupils for signs of concussion. Look at my finger. Follow it without moving your head. Kendra followed his movements. Left, right, up, down. You turned your own brother into the police? I had evidence of his crimes, attempted murder, embezzlement, drug trafficking. I gave it all to prosecutors I trust. Minjun's eyes met hers. My father would have killed him. Handled it in-house. But I'm not my father. I want to build something different. Something that doesn't require blood to maintain. And yet you just threatened to destroy Darius. Threatening and executing are different things. A dark smile. Though for you, I'd make an exception. Before Kendra could respond, there was a knock at the door. Minjun's entire demeanor changed, relaxed conversation to high alert in half a second. Stay here, he ordered, standing and moving toward the door with the fluid grace of someone trained in combat. Minjun, it's probably just the doctor. It's not. His voice was tight. The doctor would have called first. This is someone else. He looked through the peephole, and Kendra saw his jaw clench. Sangwoo, he said in Korean. Munj ISSEO? Is there a problem? The voice on the other side was urgent, rapid-fire Korean that Kendra couldn't follow. But she saw Minjun's expression transform from alert to something darker. Angrier. He opened the door, and Sangwoo rushed in, older now than in Kendra's memory from 7 years ago, but still the same intense energy. Sangwoo spoke in Korean for 30 seconds. Showed Minjun something on his phone. And Kendra watched Minjun's hands curl into fists. What? She asked, standing despite the dizziness. What's wrong? Minjun turned to her, and his eyes held a fury that made her breath catch. Your ex-husband Darius just posted on social media, he said quietly. He's claiming you're a con artist. That you tricked him into marriage to access his family's money. That you have a criminal past in Korea involving. He hesitated. Involving what? Kendra demanded. Involving illegal blood trade and association with organized crime. Minjun's voice was ice. He's spinning the story. Making you the villain. The post is already going viral, 15,000 shares in 20 minutes. Kendra's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the couch. Her reputation. Her career. Her life. Everything she'd rebuilt after Marcus was being destroyed again. In real time. On the internet. Forever. I can fix this, Minjun said immediately, kneeling in front of her. I have PR teams, lawyers, connections. No. Kendra's voice was hollow. You can't fix this. I saved a dying man and now I'm being painted as a criminal. I gave blood voluntarily and now I'm supposedly involved in illegal trafficking. There's no fixing this. The damage is done. Kendra. Everyone will believe him. Tears burned her eyes. Because he's from a respected family, and I'm just the black girl who moved too fast, wanted too much, must have been running some kind of con. That's how these stories go. That's how they always go. Minjun's hands cupped her face, forcing her to look at him. Not this time, he said fiercely. This time, you're not alone. This time, you have me. And I promise you on my life, on everything I am, Darius Montgomery will regret the day he ever said your name. The doctor arrived 20 minutes later, a Korean woman in her 50s named Dr. Park who examined Kendra with efficient thoroughness. Mild concussion. Bruised ribs. Minor lacerations. Nothing that wouldn't heal, but she needed rest, ice, and monitoring for the next 24 hours. Stay awake for at least 2 more hours, Dr. Park instructed in accented English. Someone should check on you every few hours tonight. If you experience vomiting, severe headache, confusion, or loss of consciousness, go to the emergency room immediately. After Dr. Park left, Kendra sat on the couch in the penthouse living room, wrapped in a blanket someone had provided, wearing hotel pajamas because she couldn't bear to look at her ruined wedding dress anymore. Minjun had been on the phone for the past hour, speaking rapid Korean to what sounded like dozens of different people. Lawyers, PR specialists, investigators. She'd told him not to bother. He'd ignored her. Now he finally hung up and came to sit beside her, keeping a respectful distance. My team is working on a counter-narrative, he said. By morning, we'll have a statement ready. Evidence of your blood donation being legitimate, documented proof of the hospital visit, character witnesses. Why are you doing this? Kendra interrupted. You don't know me. Not really. We met for 10 minutes 7 years ago. I gave you blood because someone was dying in front of me and I could help. That's it. That's not. It doesn't create this kind of obligation. Minjun was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood, walked to a safe hidden behind a painting, and pulled out a folder. He handed it to Kendra. Open it. She did. Inside were photos. Dozens of them. Photos of her teaching at the English Academy in Seoul, 7 years ago. Walking through Itaewon. Sitting in cafes with Ashley. Smiling, laughing, looking young and hopeful before everything with Marcus had hardened her. Photos of her back in Atlanta. At the hospital where she worked. At coffee shops. At the gym. Recent photos. From the past year. You've been watching me, Kendra whispered, horror and something else, something she didn't want to name, curling in her stomach. I've been looking for you, Minjun corrected. For 7 years. Searching every database, following every lead. When you left Seoul, you disappeared. No social media, no digital footprint, nothing. He sat down beside her again. It took me 5 years to find you in Atlanta. And when I did, he ran a hand through his hair. I should have approached you immediately. I know that. But I watched you for a while first. Wanted to make sure you were happy, safe, building the life you deserved. That's not romantic, that's stalking, Kendra said, but her voice lacked conviction. I know. And I'm sorry. Minjun's eyes met hers. But I needed to know you were okay. Needed to understand why you'd left Seoul without even saying goodbye, without collecting any kind of reward or thanks, without. Because I didn't do it for a reward. Kendra closed the folder. I did it because it was the right thing to do. Because you were dying and I could help. That's all. That's everything. Minjun's voice cracked. Do you know how rare that is? Someone who helps with no expectation of return? Someone who gives their blood, their time, their tears for a complete stranger. He moved closer and Kendra could see the intensity burning in his eyes. I woke up from surgery and you were gone. I asked Sangwoo to describe you every detail. What you looked like, what you said, how you cried in the waiting room when you heard I'd live. And He stopped, struggling with words. I fell in love with you from a hospital bed, he finally said. With the idea of you. With your compassion. With the fact that you saw a dying man and didn't run away. And then I spent 7 years trying to find you so I could tell you that. So I could know if the woman I'd built up in my mind was real. Kendra's heart was pounding. And you're better. Minjun smiled, soft and genuine. You're stronger, smarter, more beautiful than I imagined. You stood up in that ballroom and demanded respect. You told me to back down even when I was trying to protect you. You survived poverty, betrayal, homelessness, and rebuilt yourself twice. You're exhausted, Kendra whispered. I'm exhausted, Minjun. I'm tired of fighting. Tired of rebuilding. Tired of men who say they love me and then destroy me. Then stop fighting. He reached out, hesitated, then gently took her hand. Let me fight for you. Not because you can't, you obviously can. But because you shouldn't have to. Not alone. Not anymore. Kendra looked at their joined hands. His skin against hers. The warmth of contact, of human connection she'd been denying herself for so long. I don't know how to trust this, she admitted. Every time I think I've found someone safe, they prove me wrong. So test me. Minjun's thumb stroked across her knuckles. Ask me anything. Set whatever boundaries you need. Leave whenever you want. I won't stop you. I won't manipulate or guilt trip or make you feel obligated. Then what will you do? I'll wait. His eyes held hers. I've already waited 7 years. I can wait longer. However long it takes for you to believe that I'm not Marcus. I'm not Darius. I'm someone who knows exactly how valuable you are and will spend the rest of my life proving it if you let me. Kendra's throat tightened. You really mean that? With everything I am. The moment stretched between them, fragile, tentative, full of possibility. Then Kendra's phone buzzed. And buzzed again. And again. She pulled it out, looked at the screen, and her blood went cold. 53 notifications. Text messages, missed calls, social media alerts. She opened Instagram. Darius's post had gone viral, 120,000 shares now. Local news outlets were picking it up. The comments were vicious. She definitely looks like a scammer. Gold digger exposed. Why do men keep falling for these women? That she targeted him specifically. And then at the bottom of Darius's post, one line that made Kendra's hands shake. I've contacted authorities in South Korea to investigate her criminal activities from 2017. The truth will come out. He's actually reporting me to Korean police, Kendra whispered. For saving your life. Minjun read over her shoulder, and his expression transformed into something terrifying. No, he said quietly. He's not. Minjun made one phone call. Kendra couldn't understand most of the Korean, but she caught names, lawyers, police commissioners, someone called Judge Han. When he hung up, his expression was calmer. Controlled. Darius's report will be filed and immediately dismissed, Minjun said. I've provided documented evidence of your blood donation, hospital records, witness testimony, legal clearance. The Korean authorities will issue a statement within 24 hours confirming you were a voluntary donor who helped save a life. How did you? I've kept every record from that night. Every document. Every witness account. Minjun showed her his phone. I have proof that you saved my life legitimately. That there was no crime, no illegal activity, nothing but compassion and bravery. Kendra stared at him. You've been carrying around proof of my innocence for 7 years? I've been carrying around proof of your heroism. He corrected. In case I ever found you and you needed it. Something in Kendra's chest cracked open. This man, this dangerous, powerful, impossible man, had spent 7 years protecting her reputation. Her future. Her peace. Without her even knowing. I don't understand you, she whispered. You don't have to. Minjun cupped her face gently, carefully, like she was something precious. You just have to let me prove myself. That's all I'm asking. Kendra's phone buzzed again. This time it was Tanisha. Girl, where are you? Are you safe? Darius is losing his mind and the wedding is chaos. Call me ASAP. Then her mother, Kendra Marie Johnson, I'm seeing things online that better not be true. Call me right now. Then Ashley in Seoul, did you save a Mafia boss's life and not tell me? The reality of her situation crashed down. Her wedding was destroyed. Her reputation was under attack. Her family was panicking. And she was in a penthouse suite with a man she barely knew who was offering her everything she'd ever wanted: protection, support, someone who saw her worth. But at what cost? I need to think, Kendra said, pulling away from Minjun's touch. I need time. Space. I need. The lights in the penthouse went out. All of them. Simultaneously. Backup generators didn't kick in. They were plunged into complete darkness, except for the Atlanta city lights filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Minjun. Kendra's voice was small. Don't move. His voice came from right beside her, calm but alert. Stay exactly where you are. She heard him move, footsteps impossibly silent on the marble floor. Then his voice, speaking Korean, low and urgent. Then silence. Then, from somewhere in the darkness of the penthouse, a different voice. Male. Accented. Speaking English. Hello, brother. Kendra's blood turned to ice. Because she recognized that voice from Sangwoo's description 7 years ago. Taeyong. Minjun's brother. The one who'd shot him and been sent to prison. He wasn't supposed to be out for another 15 years. What continuation needed did you do? Minjun's voice was deadly quiet. A lighter flicked on across the room, illuminating a face that looked eerily like Minjun's, same sharp features, same dark eyes, but twisted with something cruel. Taeyong smiled. I made a deal. Gave prosecutors bigger fish in exchange for early release. Been out for 3 months now, Hyung. Waiting for the perfect moment to reintroduce myself. He looked at Kendra, and his smile widened. And you brought me a gift. The woman who saved your life. How poetic. Minjun moved before Kendra could process what was happening. He was across the room in seconds, putting himself between her and Taeyong, his body a shield. You're not out legally, Minjun said, his voice arctic. You escaped. Which means you're desperate, stupid, or both. Actually, I'm strategic. Taeyong circled slowly, and Kendra could see others behind him now, 3 men, armed, professional. I did make a deal. Released under conditions, stay away from you, stay out of the family business, leave Korea. Then what are you doing in Atlanta? But the deal didn't say anything about protecting what's yours. Taeyong's eyes glinted in the darkness. I've been watching you search for this woman for years. Obsessing over her. The one who saved you. Your weakness. He pulled out a gun, sleek, black, deadly. I can't kill you directly without violating my release. But if she happens to die during a robbery gone wrong in an American hotel, that's not my fault. That's just tragic. Kendra's training kicked in. She scanned the room. Exits blocked. Too far to run. Minjun was unarmed. Security had swept the suite earlier, and his weapons were in the bedroom safe. Sangwoo is in the building, Minjun said calmly. You have maybe 3 minutes before security reaches this floor. Which is 2 minutes and 50 seconds longer than I need. Taeyong raised the gun, pointing it at Kendra. Goodbye, brother's savior. Everything happened in slow motion. The gun's hammer pulling back. Minjun lunging forward. Kendra dropping to the ground. The sound of glass shattering, not from a gunshot, but from the penthouse door exploding inward. Sangwoo and 6 security personnel flooded the room, weapons drawn, moving with military precision. Taeyong's men went down in seconds, disarmed, subdued, faces pressed to marble floor. But Taeyong still had his gun pointed at Kendra. One more step and she dies, he hissed. The room froze. Minjun stood 5 feet from his brother, hands raised, eyes locked on the gun. You won't shoot her, Minjun said quietly. Won't I? No. Because you're not actually a killer, Taeyong. You're a coward who hired someone else to shoot me 7 years ago. You couldn't pull the trigger yourself then, and you can't now. Taeyong's hand trembled. You don't know what I'm capable of. I know exactly what you're capable of. Minjun took 1 step closer. Embezzlement. Manipulation. Hiring others to do your dirty work. But murder? Direct, face-to-face murder? You've never done it. And you won't start now. I hate you, Taeyong whispered. I've hated you since we were children. Father always chose you. Always saw you as the heir. I was nothing. Just the spare. So you tried to kill me instead of proving yourself worthy. Minjun's voice was sad, not angry. That's the difference between us, Taeyong. I would have shared everything with you if you'd just asked. If you'd been loyal. But you chose jealousy over brotherhood. For a moment, something flickered in Taeyong's eyes. Regret, maybe. Or grief. Then it hardened again. Loyalty is for the weak. No, Kendra's voice cut through the tension. Loyalty is for the strong. Betrayal is the coward's way out. Taeyong's gun swung toward her. And Minjun moved. He covered the distance in one fluid motion, grabbed Taeyong's wrist, twisted. The gun discharged a deafening crack in the enclosed space, but the bullet went wild, embedding in the ceiling. Minjun disarmed his brother in 3 precise movements, then had him on the ground, arm wrenched behind his back. You're done, Minjun said quietly. Sangwoo, call the FBI. Escaped felon, attempted murder, breaking and entering. Let them handle him. You can't, Taeyong struggled. I had a deal. Which you violated the moment you came after me. Minjun stood, leaving Taeyong to the security team. You had a second chance and you wasted it. There won't be a third. He turned to Kendra, and his composure finally cracked. Are you hurt? Did the bullet? I'm fine. Kendra's ears were ringing from the gunshot, but she was intact. Whole. Alive. I'm okay. Minjun pulled her into his arms, not asking permission, just needing to feel her breathing, real, safe. And Kendra let him. Because she was tired of fighting alone. Tired of pretending she didn't need anyone. Tired of denying that this man, this impossible, dangerous, devoted man, made her feel something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. I want to stay, she whispered against his chest. Not just tonight. I want to see where this goes. You and me. She felt Minjun's breath catch. Are you sure? No. Kendra pulled back to look at him. I'm terrified. But I'm also tired of letting fear make my decisions. So yes. Let's see what happens when I trust someone. When I let someone fight for me. When I stop running. Minjun's smile was brilliant, transforming his entire face. Then I have one question. What? Will you come back to Seoul with me? Just for a while. Let me show you my world. Let me prove that the life I can give you is worth the risk. Kendra thought about Atlanta. About Darius and the ruined wedding and the viral post. About starting over again in the same city where everyone would know her story. Or she could go back to Seoul. Back to where this all began. Back to a city that held possibilities instead of shame. When do we leave? She asked. If you're hooked on Kendra and Minjun's story, please hit that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me, should Kendra give Darius one final confrontation before she leaves, or just disappear to Seoul? And should we do a part 2 exploring their life in Korea? Let me know below. Now, let's get to the climax. But before Kendra could fly to Seoul, before she could disappear into a new life with Minjun, there was one loose end that needed tying. Darius. The man who'd married her and assaulted her within the same hour. The man whose viral post had painted her as a criminal. The man who thought he could destroy her reputation and walk away unscathed. Minjun wanted to handle it quietly. Efficiently. Make Darius's problems disappear in ways Kendra didn't need to witness. But Kendra had a different idea. She wanted to face him. One last time. On her terms. You don't have to see him again, Minjun said as they prepared to leave the Four Seasons 3 days later. I can handle everything. I know. Kendra adjusted the collar of her new blouse, Prada, purchased by Minjun despite her protests. But I need to do this. Need to look him in the eye and show him I'm not broken. That he didn't win. Minjun studied her face, then nodded. Then we do it together. They had one more stop before the airport. The Montgomery family estate in Buckhead, where Darius was about to learn exactly what happens when you cross-Kong Minjun's woman. The Montgomery estate was everything Kendra had expected: old money, perfectly manicured lawns, a house that screamed, "We've been rich for generations." She'd been here dozens of times during her relationship with Darius. Had Sunday dinners with his parents. Smiled through their microaggressions and careful questions about her background. Now she pulled up to the gate in Minjun's rented Maybach, black, sleek, worth more than the Montgomery family's yearly property taxes, and felt nothing. No intimidation. No inadequacy. Just clarity. The gate guard recognized her and buzzed them through without question. "Mrs. Montgomery is expecting you," he said, and Kendra didn't correct the name. Let them think she was still bound to this family for a few more minutes. Darius's mother, Patricia Montgomery, answered the door herself, unusual, since they employed a full house staff. Kendra. Patricia's smile was tight. And guest. "This is David Kim," Kendra said smoothly, using Minjun's alias. "My attorney." Patricia's eyebrow raised. "You're lawyering up? Over a little wedding spat? A little spat?" Kendra's voice was calm, but steel underneath. "Your son assaulted me in front of 200 people. He threw an $8,000 bottle at my head, gave me a concussion, tore my dress, and then posted lies about me online that have cost me my reputation. That's not a spat, Patricia. That's assault and defamation." Patricia's expression tightened. "Darius said you provoked him. That he discovered you'd been lying about your past." "I'd like to speak with Darius directly," Minjun interrupted, his voice polite but brooking no argument. "Is he available?" Patricia looked like she wanted to refuse, but something in Minjun's eyes made her step aside. "He's in the study." They found Darius exactly where Kendra expected, sitting behind his father's massive oak desk, trying to look commanding and failing miserably. He'd always played at power, had never actually earned it. Kendra. Darius stood and had the audacity to look hurt. I've been trying to reach you. We need to talk about the annulment. We're not here to talk, Kendra said. We're here to deliver information. She nodded at Minjun. He opened a leather portfolio and placed 3 documents on the desk. First, Minjun said, a restraining order. You're to have no contact with Kendra, direct or indirect. No social media posts, no messages, no showing up at her workplace. Violation results in immediate arrest. Darius's face reddened. You can't just. Second, Minjun continued, ignoring him, a cease and desist regarding your defamatory social media post. You'll issue a public apology and retraction within 24 hours, or face a lawsuit for defamation that will cost you significantly more than your pride. This is ridiculous. Third, and Minjun's voice dropped, became dangerous, documentation of your financial situation. It seems you've been living beyond your means, Darius. Credit card debt, unpaid loans, your trust fund running dry. In fact, the only reason you pursued Kendra was because you'd heard her hospital had promoted her to a management position with a significant salary increase. Kendra's breath caught. What? Minjun looked at her gently. He didn't love you. He needed you. Your income, your stability. He was drowning financially and you were his life raft. That's not, Darius started. Don't, Kendra said quietly. Don't lie anymore. I'm so tired of men lying to me. She looked at Darius, really looked at him, and saw a stranger. A weak, selfish stranger who'd seen her as a tool, not a person. What truth did you discover? She asked. That night? At the wedding. What did you find out that made you so angry? Darius's jaw clenched. I found out you donated blood to a criminal. That you were involved with organized crime in Korea. That you lied about your past. I saved a dying man's life, Kendra corrected. I didn't know who he was. I didn't care. Someone was bleeding out in front of me, and I had the medical training and blood type to help. That's not a crime, Darius. That's called being a decent human being. You never told me. Because it wasn't relevant. Her voice rose despite her intentions to stay calm. It was one night, 7 years ago, in a city I left and never went back to. Why would I mention it? It had nothing to do with us. With our relationship. Except the man you saved is worth billions, Darius shot back. Except he's been searching for you for years. Except he showed up at our wedding and you left with him. After you assaulted me. Kendra's hands were shaking. After you humiliated me. After you proved that you never actually loved me, you loved what I could provide. I did love you. No. You loved that I had a good job, stable income, and didn't ask too many questions about your finances. Kendra stepped closer to the desk. You loved that I was convenient. Just like Marcus loved that I paid for everything while he cheated on me. She laughed, bitter and broken. I have terrible taste in men. Apparently I'm attracted to users and abusers. To men who see me as a resource instead of a person. That's not fair, Darius said. I'm nothing like your ex. You're exactly like him. Kendra's voice cracked. You take and take and take. And the moment I'm not useful, the moment you discover something about my past that threatens your control, you lash out. You hurt me. You try to destroy me. She placed her hands flat on the desk. But I'm done being destroyed by men who aren't worth my tears. Darius's expression shifted then, from defensive to something uglier. You think you're better than me? You think running off with some Korean gangster makes you special? He's using you too, Kendra. Men like that don't fall in love. They collect things. You're just another possession. Minjun moved so fast Darius didn't see it coming. One moment he was sitting. The next, Minjun had him by the collar, lifted half out of his chair. Say one more word about her, Minjun said quietly, and I'll forget I promised to let the legal system handle this. I'll forget that I'm trying to be a better man than my father. And I'll show you exactly what men like me do to men like you. Patricia gasped from the doorway where she'd been watching. You're threatening my son in his own home. He threatened Kendra's life when he threw that bottle. Minjun released Darius, who stumbled backward. He threatened her reputation when he posted lies online. I'm simply returning the energy. He straightened his suit jacket. Here's what's going to happen. Darius will sign the annulment papers, no contest, no delays. He'll post a public apology and retraction. He'll delete all posts mentioning Kendra. And then he'll never speak her name again. And if I don't? Darius tried to sound brave, but his voice shook. Then I make a few phone calls, Minjun said simply. Your creditors suddenly demand immediate payment. Your father's firm mysteriously loses its biggest clients. Your family's reputation, the one thing Montgomerys pride themselves on, becomes the subject of some very unflattering investigations. He leaned in close. I can do all of this without breaking a single law. That's the difference between men with real power and boys playing pretend. We don't need violence. We just need leverage. And I have plenty. Patricia stepped forward. This is extortion. This is justice, Kendra interrupted. Your son assaulted me, Patricia. Gave me a concussion. Tore my dress. Made me bleed. In front of 200 witnesses who filmed everything. She pulled out her phone and showed Patricia the video someone had sent her, Darius throwing the bottle, Kendra falling, blood streaming down her face. Do you really want this going public? Kendra asked quietly. Do you want your son known as the man who attacked his bride at their wedding reception? Because I have evidence. I have witnesses. I have medical documentation. And unlike your son, I have nothing to lose anymore. Patricia watched the video, and something in her expression shifted. Darius, she said slowly. You told me she attacked you first. She did. The video shows otherwise. Patricia's voice was cold. You humiliated this family. You committed assault. And then you lied to me about it. Mom. Sign the papers. Patricia's tone left no room for argument. Apologize publicly. End this before it destroys everything your father and I built. Darius looked between his mother and Kendra, realization finally dawning that he'd lost. Fine, he spat. I'll sign your annulment. I'll post an apology. But don't come crying to me when he gets bored of you. When you're just another woman he used and discarded. Kendra felt Minjun tense beside her, but she placed a hand on his arm. I've got this, she said softly. She turned to Darius. You want to know the real difference between you and Minjun? Kendra asked. It's not money, though he has more. It's not power, though his reach is global while yours is limited to whatever your family name can buy. It's not even violence, though he's clearly capable of it. She stepped closer. The difference is that Minjun spent 7 years searching for me to say thank you. 7 years protecting documentation of my good deed so that when we finally met again, I'd be safe from exactly this kind of attack. He could have shown up anytime and claimed I owed him. Could have used his power to force me into his life. Her voice softened. Instead, he waited. He watched from a distance. He only revealed himself when you proved you didn't deserve me. And even then, even when I told him to back off, he respected my boundaries. Asked permission. Gave me choice. She looked at Minjun, and her heart felt too big for her chest. That's the difference, Darius. Real men don't need to control women. They don't need to diminish us to feel powerful. They elevate us. Protect us. Stand beside us as partners, not above us as owners. She turned back to Darius. So no, I won't come crying to you. Because whatever happens with Minjun, whether it works out or ends tomorrow, I'll know I was with someone who saw my worth. Who treated me with respect. Who made me feel safe. Tears burned her eyes, but she blinked them back. Something you never did. The room was silent. Then Patricia spoke, her voice quiet. I'm sorry, Kendra. Truly. You deserved better from this family. Kendra nodded. Yes, I did. Minjun placed the annulment papers in front of Darius. Sign, he said simply. Darius signed. As they walked out of the Montgomery estate for the last time, Kendra felt a weight lift from her chest. The Atlanta sun was bright. The air was crisp. And beside her walked a man who'd crossed oceans to find her. How do you feel? Minjun asked as they reached the car. Free, Kendra said, and meant it. For the first time in years, I feel free. Minjun smiled. Good. Then you're ready for the next part. Which is? Coming home with me. Kendra stopped walking. Seoul isn't my home. No, Minjun agreed. But wherever I am is. And I'm asking you, not telling, asking, will you come back to Seoul? See my world? Meet my people? Let me show you what life could look like if you take this risk. Kendra looked at him, this man who was simultaneously a stranger and the most familiar person in her life. What if it doesn't work? She whispered. What if I get there and realize we're too different? That your world is too dangerous, too complicated, too. Then I'll buy you a plane ticket home, Minjun said simply. I'll help you rebuild in Atlanta or Baltimore or wherever you want to go. I'll set up a trust fund so you never have to worry about money again. And I'll let you go. His eyes held hers. But I don't think that's what will happen. Why not? Because I've been watching you for 2 years, Kendra. I've seen you teach students, help colleagues, volunteer at free clinics. I've seen your heart, your strength, your capacity for love even after being hurt so many times. He stepped closer. And I hope, that you're exactly as stubborn as I am. That you'll fight for this the way I've fought to find you. That you'll give us a real chance. Kendra thought about her apartment in Atlanta, small, lonely, full of furniture she'd bought trying to build a life with Darius. She thought about her job, stable but uninspiring. She thought about her friends, good people, but none who truly understood her journey. And then she thought about Seoul. About a city that had been the setting of her lowest and potentially her highest point. About starting over one more time, but this time with someone beside her instead of alone. Okay, she said. Let's go to Seoul. But before they could leave, Minjun had one more piece of business. That night, Darius's public apology went live. It was thorough, specific, humiliating in its honesty. I owe Kendra Johnson a profound apology. On our wedding day, I physically assaulted her in front of 200 guests. I threw a bottle that struck her in the head, causing injury and trauma. Then I attempted to destroy her reputation by posting false information about her past. The truth is, Kendra saved a life 7 years ago through a legitimate blood donation. There was no criminal activity. No illegal trafficking. Just a compassionate woman helping a stranger in need. I was wrong. I was cruel. I was abusive. I take full responsibility for my actions. I've enrolled in anger management therapy. I'm working with my family to understand why I felt entitled to treat another human being this way. Kendra, if you ever read this, I'm sorry. You deserved better from me. You deserved better from this family. I hope you find the happiness you've always deserved. I will not be making any further statements about this situation. Kendra's privacy and peace are paramount. Asterisk sincerely. Darius Montgomery 3. The post had comments disabled. Within hours, the narrative shifted. Think pieces appeared, when wedding bells become warning bells, domestic violence in elite spaces. Why we believe rich men over black women. Kendra Johnson's story. Support poured in. Her job called to say they stood behind her. Friends reached out. Strangers sent messages of solidarity. And Darius Montgomery 3, trust fund baby, mediocre investment banker, and the man who'd thought he could destroy Kendra's life, became a cautionary tale. Minjun showed Kendra the shifting online sentiment as they boarded his private jet to Seoul. It's not enough, he said quietly. An apology doesn't undo trauma. But it's a start. It's more than Marcus ever gave me, Kendra said, buckling into the leather seat that probably cost more than her car. Sometimes an acknowledgement of wrongdoing is all you can get. She looked out the window as the plane began to taxi. Atlanta, city of her rebuilding, site of her latest heartbreak, grew smaller beneath them. And ahead, across an ocean and 13 hours of flight time, Seoul waited. Her past. Possibly her future. Definitely her choice. What Kendra didn't know as that plane lifted off was that her arrival in Seoul would change everything, not just for her, but for the entire Kong family. What she didn't know was that Minjun's world was more complicated than she'd imagined, more dangerous, more beautiful. What she didn't know was that saving his life 7 years ago had set in motion events that would transform her from Kendra Johnson, phlebotomist from Baltimore, into something entirely new. But she was about to find out. Because when Kong Minjun's woman comes home, the entire city takes notice. The flight to Seoul was 13 hours of surreal luxury. Kendra had never been on a private jet before. Leather seats that reclined into full beds. A flight attendant who brought whatever food or drink she requested. Silence, no crying babies, no cramped middle seats, just space and peace. Minjun worked for most of the flight, phone calls in Korean, laptop open, managing an empire even at 35,000 feet. But every hour, he'd stop, check on her, ask if she needed anything. And every time, Kendra felt that same flutter in her chest. The awareness that this man, powerful, dangerous, busy, had made her his priority. Around hour 10, when most of the lights were dimmed for sleep, Minjun finally closed his laptop and came to sit beside her. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Too much in my head." Kendra looked out at the darkness beyond the window. "I keep thinking about the last time I left Seoul. How broken I was. How I never wanted to come back. And now? Now I'm terrified and excited and confused all at once." She turned to face him. "What if your world doesn't have room for me? What if I don't fit?" Minjun reached out, tucked a lock behind her ear with such gentleness it made her breath catch. "Then we'll make room," he said simply. "Kendra, I'm not asking you to change who you are. I'm not asking you to fit into some predetermined role. I'm asking you to exist beside me. To build something new together. What does that even look like? I don't know yet." His smile was soft. "That's the exciting part. We get to figure it out as we go." Kendra studied his face, the sharp features, the dark eyes that held universes of complexity, the mouth that could order violence or whisper tenderness with equal ease. "I'm still scared," she admitted. "Good." Minjun's thumb brushed her cheek. "Fear means you're being smart. Cautious. Protecting yourself. I'd be worried if you weren't scared. And if I decide this isn't for me, then I keep my promise. I let you go." His eyes held hers. "But I'm hoping I never have to." Kendra leaned into his touch, just slightly. "Me too." Seoul in spring was a revelation. Cherry blossoms everywhere, lining streets, filling parks, creating canopies of pink and white that made the entire city look like a fairy tale. Kendra stood on the balcony of Minjun's penthouse in Gangnam, their penthouse now, she supposed, though she still struggled with that possessive, and watched the city wake up below her. 3 months. 3 months of learning Korean in intensive classes Minjun had arranged. 3 months of meeting his business associates, his legitimate employees, the carefully curated public face of the Kong family empire. 3 months of slowly understanding the complexity of the man she'd chosen. Because Minjun wasn't just one thing. He was the ruthless businessman who'd cornered the luxury real estate market in 3 countries. The protective lover who brought her coffee every morning exactly how she liked it. The strategic mind who'd successfully legitimized 60% of his father's criminal operations into legal enterprises. The man who woke up screaming from nightmares about his brother's betrayal. The leader who inspired fierce loyalty from everyone who worked for him. The partner who asked her opinion on major decisions even though she knew nothing about commercial real estate or import-export businesses. He was a contradiction. A complication. A man trying to be better than his blood while honoring the legacy that made him. And somehow, impossibly, Kendra was falling in love with all of it. "You're up early." Minjun's voice came from behind her, sleep-rough and warm. Kendra turned to find him in the doorway, shirtless, hair mussed, looking nothing like the polished businessman's soul feared and respected. "Couldn't sleep," she said. "Too beautiful outside." He joined her on the balcony, wrapped his arms around her from behind, and they stood together watching cherry blossoms fall like snow. "I have something to show you today," Minjun said after a moment. "Business or pleasure?" "Both." She felt him smile against her hair. "There's a building in Itaewon. 5 stories, recently renovated, currently empty. I bought it 3 weeks ago." Kendra's heart sank slightly. Another business acquisition. Another building to add to his portfolio. "Congratulations." "It's yours." She turned in his arms. "What?" "The building. It's yours. In your name. Legally transferred yesterday." Minjun's eyes were soft. "You mentioned wanting to do something meaningful. Something that helped other women who'd been through what you experienced." Kendra's breath caught. "I thought maybe it could be a foundation," Minjun continued. "Housing for women escaping financial abuse. Job training. Medical care. Therapy. Whatever you think would have helped you 7 years ago. Tears burned Kendra's eyes. Minjun, I can't accept. Yes, you can. He cupped her face. You saved my life, Kendra. Let me help you save others. This is too much. It's not nearly enough. His thumbs brushed away her tears. You gave me my life back. Let me give you the resources to change lives. Please. Kendra looked at this man, this impossible, generous, complicated man, and felt something shift permanently in her chest. Not just attraction. Not just gratitude. Love. Real, terrifying, transformative love. Okay, she whispered. Let's build something beautiful. The Second Chances Foundation opened on a perfect autumn day. The building in Itaewon was transformed, warm, welcoming, modern. 20 private rooms for women in crisis. A medical clinic staffed by volunteer nurses and doctors. Therapy offices. A job training center. A child care facility. Everything Kendra had wished existed when she was sleeping in her car in Brooklyn. The opening ceremony was attended by local press, city officials, and dozens of women whose lives had already been changed by the foundation's pre-launch assistance programs. Kendra stood at the podium in a navy dress, Chanel, because Minjun insisted she looked like the CEO she'd become, though she'd drawn the line at excessive jewelry and looked out at the crowd. Her mother had flown in from Baltimore. Ashley sat in the front row. Tanisha had come all the way from Atlanta. And Minjun stood off to the side with Sangwoo, watching her with undisguised pride. This foundation exists, Kendra began, her voice steady despite her nerves, because I lived this experience. 7 years ago, I was homeless. Broken. I'd been betrayed by someone I loved, lost everything I'd worked for, and genuinely didn't know if I'd survive. She looked directly at the women in the audience who were currently living in the foundation's housing. I know what it's like to have $11 in your bank account and have to choose between gas for your car or food for your body. I know what it's like to sleep in parking lots and shower in gas station bathrooms and apply for jobs while pretending you have a home to go back to. Her voice cracked, but she pushed through. I know what it's like to feel worthless, because someone you trusted told you that you were. I know the shame, the exhaustion, the bone-deep fear that you'll never be whole again. Kendra smiled through tears. But I also know that with support, with resources, with people who believe in you, you can rebuild. You can thrive. You can become someone you never imagined possible. She gestured at the building behind her. This foundation is proof. I survived. I thrived. And if I can do it, so can you. The applause was thunderous. That night, back at the penthouse, Minjun found Kendra on the same balcony where they'd stood a year ago discussing the foundation. Proud of you, he said simply, handing her a glass of wine. Couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have. Minjun's voice was certain. You're the strongest person I know, Kendra. You would have found a way. I just expedited the process. Kendra laughed softly. Expedited by about $1 million. Money I would have wasted on another building sitting empty. He pulled her close. This way, it actually means something. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city lights. Do you ever think about that night? Kendra asked quietly. 7 years ago. The snow. The blood. How impossibly unlikely it was that I'd be there at that exact moment. Every day. Minjun's arms tightened around her. I think about how close I came to dying before I met you. How different my life would be if you'd walked a different street. Made a different choice. Do you believe in fate? I believe in you. He turned her to face him. Everything else is just details. 2 months later, on a winter evening when snow fell softly over Seoul just like it had 7 years ago, Minjun took Kendra back to Itaewon. Back to the exact street corner where his SUV had crashed. Where she'd run toward danger instead of away. Where everything had started. Why are we here? Kendra asked, breath fogging in the cold air. Minjun knelt in the snow. Pulled out a small velvet box. And Kendra's heart stopped. 7 years ago, Minjun said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes, you saved my life in this spot. You gave me your blood, your time, your tears. You gave me hope when I was dying. He opened the box, revealing a ring simple, elegant, a single diamond that caught the street light. I spent 7 years searching for you so I could say thank you. So I could repay the debt. But somewhere along the way, I realized I wasn't searching for the woman who saved my life. Tears streamed down Kendra's face. I was searching for the woman who'd become my life. Minjun's voice cracked. Kendra Ashante Johnson, you are the strongest, most compassionate, most beautiful person I've ever known. You challenged me to be better. You showed me what real love looks like, not ownership, but partnership. Not control, but trust. He smiled through his own tears. Will you marry me? For real this time. No doubts, no betrayals, no running. Just us, building something beautiful together. Kendra dropped to her knees in the snow beside him. Yes, she sobbed. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, and they kissed in the exact spot where their story began. Where blood had stained white snow. Where a dying man had looked at a stranger and smiled. Where 7 years of fate had started counting down to this perfect moment. The wedding was small. Intimate. Nothing like the elaborate disaster with Darius. Just close friends and family in a private garden, cherry blossoms falling like blessings, vows spoken in English and Korean, 2 cultures blending seamlessly. Kendra wore white again, but this time, the dress stayed pristine. This time, she walked down an aisle toward a man who saw her worth. This time, she said, I do, with absolute certainty. And when Minjun kissed her, when the small crowd applauded, when her mother hugged her and whispered, this one's different, baby. This one's real. Kendra finally understood what she'd been searching for all along. Not someone to complete her. Not someone to save her. But someone to stand beside her. An equal partner in building a life worth living. She'd survived Marcus. She'd survived Darius. She'd survived homelessness and heartbreak and having nothing. And now, finally, she was thriving. Not because a man had rescued her, but because she'd rescued herself. And then chosen to let someone worthy stand beside her in the life she'd built. If you made it to the end of Kendra and Minjun's story, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to smash that like button if you love their journey from a snowy Seoul street to happily ever after. Subscribe to Revenge Cafe for more Afro-Korean romance stories that will have you in your feelings. Comment below telling me, what was your favorite moment? The wedding confrontation? The Seoul reunion? The proposal? Should I do a part 2 exploring their marriage, maybe introducing a new threat or showing them navigating parenthood? What story should I tell next? Forbidden love? Secret baby? Revenge plot? Mafia queen origin story? To everyone watching, remember, you are always worth protecting. You deserve partners who see your value. And sometimes the most beautiful love stories start in the most unexpected places. Until next time, keep believing in second chances. Heartsuit.